Bonjour tout le monde et aujourd'hui on va discuter de comment j'écris mes notes pour l'école. If you do not understand, I'm going to show you how I organize my notes and how I take my notes and all that stuff. I'm going to be talking about my math notes, my history notes, my language notes, and my science notes. We are first going to start with my math notes. I'm pretty proud of my math note, and that's why I wanted them to be first, because they help me a lot with how I organize everything. Purple is always my title for anything, like chapter 2.1, 2.2, 3.4, all that kind of stuff. Then blue is for my example problems. I have whatever is the actual problem written down in blue, and then any kind of work that we do in class is all in pencil, just in case I make any kind of mistakes or she makes mistakes and then I have to erase. Red is for things that the teacher says out loud that if I don't write it down into my notes and point it to something, it's not going to make any sense to me at all. So things like this, maybe I'll put a star by it if I really need to remember it. Otherwise, I'll just put it really on the side and point arrows to wherever it's supposed to go, because otherwise I won't know. Can't just be floating around. Green is for equations to really remember. I put usually a lot of my equations like at the top of my homework, so then I can always look back on that, and I'll constantly be looking at it in a nice color so I can hopefully remember it better. Right now I'm in calculus and some of the things are pre-calc, so I should already know this stuff, but let's say that I don't remember it, or I just want to make sure that I remember it. I make a little box of whatever it is in black ink, and then I just highlight it all with my green highlighter. And then lastly, for my math notes, anything that is graphed usually has a bunch of colors because they all represent different things on the graph. There's really no color scheme that I have for this because it's always different in every single kind of math problem. Next is my history notes. As always, purple is the title. Usually I always use purple for any kind of title, unless I want to use a different color and I don't have any other color because I use the other colors too much. I will use purple as a last resort. Any of my terms are in blue. They have a little box in front of them, and then the definition is written in black ink afterwards. If the title of the slide is kind of important and it puts everything into a different little subject, a different little topic, then I will use black ink. I will write a triangle onto the margin on the left, and then I will write down the title and highlight that in green highlighter. Anything in red is pretty important. It could also be just like my math notes where he said it out loud but he didn't write it down in the notes, so I have no idea how to put that into anywhere, so I just kind of put that on the side. I also kind of use green for my afterthoughts, like let's say I had something in red that he said out loud but then he goes back to it like later on, then I will just put it in green because it's not as important, but it's down on paper just in case I need to study for it. Next we have my language notes. I was too lazy to go find my actual French notebooks, so I'm just currently using this little diary that I used when I was getting really into French, but there was like little extra things that I forgot from like the other French classes, so I wrote them all down in here kind of like as a little review. Purple is the title. Vocab is usually in blue on the left side, and that's usually going to be in French or German or whatever language I'm learning, and then on the right side is black ink in English, my first language. Any endings to verb tenses, I will put a little dash and then I will just put the ending to it, and usually they were in these like little charts. If your teachers taught your verb tenses that way, then it probably makes a lot more sense than I'm saying out loud. Anything important to remember, like special verb conjugations, because sometimes in verb tenses there are regular and irregular verbs, so the irregular verbs or phrases, I will put all that in blue. Anything like little notes of pronunciation, I make sure that I write the phrase in one color and then I put down the pronunciation in a different color, because you don't want them kind of the same, otherwise it just doesn't make any sense, because what you're saying out loud is different than writing it down on paper. Now we are moving on to my science notes. This is my book for AP Chem that I took last year, and I really love these composition books. If you are not tearing out pages all the time, like my math class, I will always have the ring notebooks because sometimes I will have to take out the homework. Usually with my chemistry, anything that needed to be turned in, I knew specifically I needed to turn it in, and so I put it on a different piece of paper. Or most of my stuff was on worksheets. Most of the things that I needed to turn in were on worksheets, so I knew that this was fine to use because I wasn't going to tear out any of the pages. As always, always, purple is the title. Any little mnemonics that you have, make sure that the first letter of the mnemonic is in a different color than the actual like phrase, the rest of the mnemonic that you say out loud or you think, in order to remember it. Any really important equations are in black with green highlighter. Also with the equations in blue, I have arrows pointing to each variable and pointing out what each variable means, because you can't just write down the equation and then not know what the variable means. Any important terms that I had a little blue box next to it, and the term was actually in blue too. The definition was in black, just like in my history notes. Little subjects, like sub-subjects, would have a green box next to it, and they would be green as well with everything underneath it. I also used that if there was a term that I had, but it had a ton of things to it that I couldn't just write down the definition for it, I would put that in green, and then I would put everything in black ink afterwards of what I needed to remember. As always, red is for important things. They would become even more important if I put a star next to it or stars around it. It is also not for equations, as I already have something for equations, so it's just for other important things that maybe he said out loud. And graphs were always different colors, no color scheme, just whatever was either posted on the screen or just whatever I thought would fit. And then right now I'm going to talk about some other things, like any questions that I would have would go on top of my homework in purple, so above my title, or they would go just somewhere in the lecture. If I didn't understand it, I would just put a little question above there, so then I wouldn't forget my question and then not be able to answer in class the next day or whenever I was going to be in class. I can make a video if you want to see how I study for my test. And don't put too much important stuff in one color, because you don't want to just write down everything. I know I've seen things online where girls have really nice notes, but when I look at them, I notice that they are writing down a lot, like so much, and you don't need to write down that much stuff, otherwise you're not going to memorize any of it. Especially if it's something like history or English, there's going to be a lot of words in it. Whatever they put on the slides, you don't want to put exactly onto your own notes, because you don't want to take it word for word. You want to put it into your own word. Granted, sometimes you can't do it and you have to write down everything, but you want to color code it. Just make it shorter by taking out little things and whatever. If you guys want to see how I put shortcuts and make my notes shorter, I can make a video about that too. If you guys are interested, I don't really have anything else to say about all my notes. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you would like to see more videos like this, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a thumbs up. Tell me that you liked it. Tell me that you want more videos like this. Also, as I've mentioned earlier, I can show you how I break down my notes and make it so I can actually study it and there's not so many words in it, because too many words is bad, really bad. I can also do how I study for tests, how I study for quizzes, stuff like that. Comment down below if you like any of it, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye!